Tech family, we have been waiting for one of the new 8-core Ryzen 4000 series processors coupled with a great screen in a high-end chassis for under $1,000. Today, that search may be over. With me is the RedmiBook 16 with the Ryzen 4700U processor, 16GB of RAM and a 512GB SSD. A super promising device by the Chinese manufacturer Xiaomi. Hopefully I didn't botch the pronunciation with my Australian accent like I seem to for so many things, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I do in the comments below. Speaking of comments, I've had a tiny number of people post in prior videos saying they won't buy from a Chinese manufacturer. This channel is about promoting and celebrating innovation, wherever it may be. I will continue to delete such nonsense comments. Plus, most American manufacturers source their parts and assembly from China anyway. So I really don't know what these people are talking about. I'm Josh, and I buy and review a lot of laptops and talk tech from the perspective of what it's like to actually own and use the devices. If after watching you like what you saw, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. It shows your appreciation for the incredible amount of work that goes into making these. I'm going to do this review a little differently as it's such a unique laptop. I'm first going to walk you through the incredible pros and then go over some pretty concerning cons. Finally, I'll wrap up by covering who should buy this machine. Let's get into it. The first pro is the chassis. It looks and feels like such a premium device. It's definitely a step up in build quality from other devices in this price range. That being said, don't expect Apple levels of build quality here, it's just not there. The screen does open with one hand, and importantly, it looks nice and clean out of the box with only one sticker. The bezels are very small on this 16-inch laptop. It's a little wider than the MacBook Pro 16, but not as tall. Somewhat because this is a 16 by 9-inch screen rather than the MacBook Pro 16 by 10. Honestly though, on a screen this large, there is plenty of real estate, even vertically. It's lighter than the MacBook Pro 16, which is incredible as that laptop is already very light. It's just a tad heavier than the IdeaPad 5 15. The next pro, and it is a big one, is fan noise. I'm delighted to report that this is one of the quietest laptops I've ever used. Seriously guys, it is silent for light to medium tasks most of the time, and it is quieter than the two IdeaPads I've tested, even though those weren't overly loud to begin with. Only under full load do you start to hear the fans, and even then it is far from the loudest laptop I've tested. Another massive pro is heat that you would actually feel on the chassis. I am blown away by how cool this chassis feels, both on the keyboard deck and underside when on my lap. It is substantially cooler to the touch when under load than any other laptop I've ever tested. I seriously was questioning whether I had a faulty heat gun when I was testing it, but just by touching the laptop you can feel how cool it runs. I guess it's a combination of putting one of these new Ryzen CPUs in a decent sized, well-cooled chassis. Next is the display. It is a very good one and one of the best Full HD screens I've tested to date. You can see how color accurate it is on screen. It is a significant step up from the IdeaPad 5, 14, 15 and the Swift 3. And it even competes with the MacBook Air's color accuracy. Also, don't let the brightness of only 300 nits deter you too much. On a large 16-inch matte panel, which does not have any reflections, 300 nits of brightness is good enough to see in a brightly lit room. Also, I personally was expecting that the Full HD 1920 by 1080 pixels stretched over a larger 16-inch screen would result in me seeing actual pixels due to the lower pixel density. I am pleased to say that this wasn't an issue for me, and it has opened my mind to 17-inch 1920 by 1080 gaming displays that I would have previously avoided. By the way, the screen is not a touchscreen. My unit arrived with no dead pixels and I didn't notice any PWM flickering to lower the brightness. The only downside was it did have some backlight bleeding. Overall, this is the first screen that I found in the sub $1,000 price range that is good enough for some photo and video editing. Performance is another pro of this laptop. It is an absolute beast. It performs very well in benchmarks like Geekbench, destroying far more expensive competitors like the MacBook Pro 13. The same can be said about Cinebench R20 as well. Obviously, a lot of this is due to the new Ryzen CPU in this well-cooled laptop. I mean, check out the max CPU temperatures in this Cinebench R20 run. It's in the mid 70s Celsius. That is insanely cool for an 8-core processor. In my MacBook Pro 16 with its Intel 8-core processor, you'd see it in the 90s. This laptop's 16GB of RAM runs at 2666 MHz and is configured in dual channel, which is good. The SSD performance though is very poor. I believe it's equipped with an older SATA 3 SSD. That being said, for the most part, it doesn't seem to affect real-world application performance. Laptop startup time was decent. Opening a Word document was very fast. Programming tasks were also fast, including starting the integrated development environment IntelliJ, doing a code compile followed by running the code on the JBoss application server in debug mode. The only task that was on the slower side was reloading a large MySQL database, which is a mostly single-threaded task and therefore doesn't benefit from the 8 cores. This could also be hindered by the slower SSD. Audio latency wasn't great, although be aware I did run some heavy tasks to push the laptop while this test was running. Wi-Fi speeds were also excellent, although I do not believe this has Wi-Fi 6. I did play a couple of rounds of League of Legends on higher settings at 1920 by 1080 and found it very playable, getting around 90 frames per second. I do think that this laptop is good enough to play light games at 1080 resolution on medium settings, but look elsewhere if you want to play AAA titles. Another pro is that this laptop has a decent selection of ports. There are USB-A ports on both sides of the laptop, which is convenient, and 2 USB-C ports on the left side that both support charging. Also, the ports are super stiff to plug into and feel very high quality. I had no issues operating an external 4K monitor over DisplayPort using the USB-C connection, running at 60Hz for the full resolution. By the way, I did have to install the Adrenalin driver from AMD to get this working. Prior to installing the driver, the laptop did not recognize it was plugged into an external monitor via either USB-C or HDMI. The keyboard feels very good to type on with decent spacing and key travel. Honestly, it felt better than Apple's supposed Magic keyboards. Mine came in English, which was a relief as this is a Chinese laptop, and the layout was very standard, which is also good. The trackpad was excellent, very smooth glide and Windows precision accuracy. It felt better than the new Dell XPS laptops. Battery life was also good, which surprised me as it only has a 46 watt-hour battery. I was getting about 6 hours of light use on full brightness with Windows performance mode set to better performance. I feel like it would be able to push maybe 8 hours if you lowered the brightness settings and the performance mode. The charger is also crazy small and lightweight for a 65 watt one, making the whole package feel extremely portable. By the way, it did come with some really odd extras in the box, including an international to American power converter, which you don't need as the charger is already an American one, plus it came with a USB-A to micro USB cable, no idea why. Lastly, the price is excellent at $920 which is the total amount I paid on GearBest all said and done, a site that sells Chinese products internationally. So that's a lot of pros, right? Before you go running out to buy one, let's go through the rather significant cons. The first one, which is a pretty big one, is that this laptop only comes with a Chinese language Windows license. That means that it will not let you switch to English in Windows, and even if you try to reinstall a fresh copy of the English version of Windows, the product key that this laptop comes with will not be accepted. Yep, you have to purchase a new Windows key, currently $139 for the home version. Luckily for me, I had an unused license that I had purchased to run my Mac in boot camp, but that does take the cost of this laptop up significantly from about $900 to around $1,050. Now, the laptop does not come with a webcam at all, which may be a showstopper for those who spend their days on Zoom. Audio quality, while very good, doesn't get that loud, and the speakers are placed on the bottom of the laptop, so they will become muffled if you use the laptop on your lap, say on a blanket or sitting up in bed. Take a listen. I don't believe the keyboard is backlit, at least I couldn't find any way to turn on a backlight, so using it at night in a dark room will be challenging. Also, even though the chassis felt very premium as I mentioned, I did find the edges felt reasonably sharp at some angles. I found the back of the laptop very hard to open up to get at the internals. Even though screws are exposed, I believe there is one screw under one of the back rubber feet that I couldn't get to. As this is such a nice laptop, I didn't want to push this too hard, so that's why you aren't seeing any footage of the internals here. Let me know if you really want to see the internals in the comments below, and I may rethink this. Next, the ports. Even though plentiful, they are slow. Seriously, one of these USB-A ports is USB 2.0, which is 480 megabits per second. I mean, nowadays, modern ports start at a minimum of 5 gigabits per second. Plus, it would have been nice to have an SD card reader, and because both of the charging ports are on the left side, you will have to run a cable around the back if your power outlet is on the right. This is annoying, especially as the power cable it comes with is very short. There is also no way to quickly log into the laptop with a fingerprint reader or Windows Hello facial recognition. It's odd as the advertising material said it had some sort of smart sensor key, which I'm assuming meant a fingerprint login. If there is, I certainly couldn't find it in my install. Also, minor thing, the laptop arrived in the most ludicrous packaging. I originally wanted to do an unboxing for you all to some nice B-roll music, but couldn't because it was crazy hard to get into. It was literally covered in packaging tape. And lastly, but importantly, if you have any issues with this laptop, you will have to ship it back to China, which may substantially delay the time it takes to get your machine replaced or fixed. Plus, after a bit of research into retailer GearBest, it seems they will only pay for return shipping if it is dead on arrival. So if you decide you don't want the laptop and want to return it, expect an expensive charge to send it back to China. So where does this leave us? Overall, this is a very comfortable laptop to use as Xiaomi gets the basics right. It's very lightweight, it has a big color accurate screen, it's got an excellent keyboard and trackpad, almost no fan noise, and it doesn't get warm to the touch at all. But I personally can't recommend it for most people, especially non-Chinese buyers who will have a tougher time getting support and have to buy their own Windows key. For most people shopping in this price range, I think the Lenovo X1 Carbon 7th Gen or the Slim 7 with Ryzen, which I'm yet to test, are much better all-round choices. Yes, they will have downsides compared to this laptop, but I think they are better for most people. I'd only recommend this laptop for someone who absolutely wants a silent and cool running laptop for around $1,000 with a big screen and powerful components above all else, and is therefore truly okay with the downsides like no webcam or a backlit keyboard. Anyway folks, that's all for today. If you like this video, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. Until next time, I will catch you later.